We haven't done politics in a very long time around here. I'm really not much of a fan anymore because I think the political landscape is a horrible mess, but sometimes you just have to face the mess head on. Therefore, we're going to do that today because, why the hell not? So, not long ago, I had somebody contact me saying they'd been listening through all the old podcasts and they were wondering why I didn't do any political content anymore. And I explained that's not really the focus of the channel, at least not today, but they pointed me in the direction of this political typology quiz over on Pew Research, and I figured it might be interesting enough to go through together. Now, because I know this isn't everybody's cup of tea, I'm going to do it all in one video. One very, very, very long video. So I apologize if anybody doesn't like that, but strap in and get comfortable. If you don't like politics, this is your chance to just click out. But for the rest of you, let's keep going. Now, in the interest of transparency, I've actually taken this before. It's how I decided that I wanted to make a video of it. I say that only because most of the religious videos that I do, you're seeing my reactions reasonably live, or at least my reactions as I write the script, because it's usually fresh to me too. And that's not going to be the case here, but I'll try to answer the same way. And while I know up front what result I'm going to get, I still think the journey is interesting enough in and of itself. Plus, if you've seen some of the recent videos I've done, especially a three-parter I'm in the middle of, which may or may not be done by the time this goes up, you'll know why I had to do something different before I went totally insane. So, let's get at it and see what Pew wants to know. If you had to choose, would you rather have a smaller government providing fewer services or a bigger government providing more services? And my answer is simple: small government by a mile. There are only a couple of things that the government really ought to be providing. It should provide for the common defense, it should provide basic infrastructure, it should ensure equality across the board, and that's really about it. You might be able to argue a few more things into the mix, but basically, the government is there to do the things that can't reasonably be done by private enterprise, at least not well. The government isn't there to provide everything in the world for everybody in the world. Most things are the job of the people, either collectively or individually. Individual responsibility is a requirement whether anybody likes it or not. So long as everybody is treated equally and fairly on a societal level, the rest of it is really up to you, along with the benefits and consequences therein. If you do well, you reap the rewards. If you screw up, you pay the price. That's kind of how it works. Which of the following statements comes closest to your view? America's openness to people from all over the world is essential to who we are as a nation, or if America is too open to people from around the world, we risk losing our identity as a nation. So we're going to the badly worded questions right up front, I guess. This is a problem with most of these quizzes, and if you've watched me take some of these, you know how I do this. But most of them don't provide enough context to really make a coherent choice. Well, what do you mean by openness? Open to anybody who wants to come here to become an American citizen? Hey, I'm completely fine with that. Open to the complete chaos when we have absolutely no expectations of newcomers? Yeah, I'm not there. If you want to come and be an American, and that's an important part, then by all means feel free. We should welcome you with open arms, because that requires adopting the existing culture, at least to a certain degree, and giving up your allegiance to wherever the hell you came from. That doesn't mean you can't still like your former country. Feel free, go right ahead. But none of this hyphenated American crap. If you like that other country so much, go live there. Pick one. It's really not that hard. This is one of the questions, and there are others, where I can't just confidently pick an answer because none of them are clear enough to feel confident in. I don't want terrorists in America. Trust me, I've been right there in the midst of a terrorist bombing before, and hard pass on that again. I'm not saying exactly who was doing the bombing, but I think we can all guess. But it does apply to any group, political, religious, or otherwise. Come here because you want to be an American, because you want to take part in the American system and enjoy the American largesse. Not because you just want free stuff, because lots of people are really only after that. So long as you want to be an American, nope, hyphens permitted, I will welcome you with open arms. And I don't care where you came from, I don't care who you are. If you want to be with us, then you can be with us. Therefore, I'm just going to pick the second one because there have to be limits, but there's just not enough clarity here to really be confident in that answer. In general, would you say experts who study a subject for many years are better at making good policy decisions, worse, or none of the above? And again, I can't say based on the generalities because it could be any of those. There are supposed experts in their fields who are running on pure fee-fees. And there are others who have a distinct profit motive. There are some who can set aside their emotions and preconceived notions and act on the available evidence, and a lot who can't. Therefore, there's really no way to say better or worse because some are better and some are worse, and I don't operate on undefined generalities. There are plenty of people out there who ought to know the actual evidence and where it points, but they're looking for political power, and therefore they don't really care. They're voting in their own favor and for their own benefit. And I'm really sick of the fact that today, politics isn't viewed as a public service. It's a career path. And that should not be the case. There should be no career politicians. None at all. Everybody ought to be forced to be in the private sector for at least half the time, if not more. So I'm going to go with the last option. I can't in good conscience pick any other. Thinking about increased trade of goods and services between the US and other nations in recent decades, would you say that the US has gained more or lost more essentially? Now, I am in favor of increased trade both in and out. We benefit if we export goods to other countries, and we also benefit if we import things that we don't otherwise produce. It provides more choices in the marketplace and increased competition, so long as it's fair competition, and that's always a good thing. However, in recent decades, we've gone from being a largely exporting power to largely an importing power, and the American people, to their own detriment, have become, let's be honest, cheap and lazy. We import things from other countries with questionable quality and questionable ethics, and so long as the shelves at Walmart are full of cheap crap, most people don't seem to care. But when you have literal slave labor, unlimited child labor in other countries, cranking out garbage for pennies a day, that's where we ought to start asking some questions. But people have been doing it for so long that they've stopped asking anything so long as they get their cheap fix. If we can import things that help us, great. If we can, at the same time, help other countries to develop, that's fantastic. But far too often, the people who are making the cheap crap that we are consuming, they aren't benefiting. They are virtual slaves in their own lands, and all of the money goes to the government or whatever, and that should never be acceptable. I'd say we're losing more than we're gaining, because we stopped giving a damn. And that's really sad. How much more, if anything, needs to be done to ensure equal rights for all Americans, regardless of their racial or ethnic backgrounds? So here's where I'm going to start making people mad, and that's just life. You'll get over it. I think we need to stop making laws to deal with perceived slights and just make laws that everyone is equal in the eyes of the law. That's largely already been done, of course, but that doesn't change people whining about it. The Equal Pay Act was passed in 1963. If you do the same job that requires the same experience, education, and skills and time on job, then you get the same pay. That goes for anyone of any gender, any race, anything, and that's the way it ought to work. While that act didn't specifically state it, the courts have upheld that you can't pay black people less than you pay white people, just like you can't pay women less than men, etc., etc. That just doesn't happen anymore. But there's an awful lot of people out there who are just running on fee-fees, not facts. It doesn't feel equal, even though it actually is. It's why the farcical gender pay gap doesn't deal in apples-to-apples comparisons. It's all jobs done by men versus all jobs done by women without regard to the choices that men and women tend to make. Men tend to go into more dangerous and time-consuming fields of work. They make more money as a consequence because they're doing jobs that earn more money. Now, I'm not at all opposed to women doing those jobs if they want to do it. Hell, I am totally fine with women being on the front lines and being combat pilots and all the rest of that. Equality is equality. It's not equality in name, it's equality in practice. So long as you can meet the same standards, you should be able to do the same jobs and make the same amount of money. But these are choices, and women tend to go into lower paying fields of their own volition. That's not my fault, that's theirs. Actions have consequences whether anybody likes it or not. And that's why there's a constant push to get women to go into STEM fields, but very few women want to go. And that's not to say that they can't. I know women scientists and they're brilliant, but most women tend to go another way. You can't just evaluate apples to oranges and say that there's a disparity, because there isn't, except for the one that you invented in your head. Yet, if you go look at, say, architects who've been in the same position at the same company for the same amount of time with the same level of success, they are going to be making the exact same amount of money no matter what their gender is. Therefore, while I don't think we're quite there yet, I don't really think there's a whole lot left to do. Which of the following statements comes closest to your view? Business corporations make too much profit, or most corporations make a fair and reasonable amount of profit? Well, it's clearly the second. Now, I know a lot of people get jealous to see the Elon Musks and the Jeff Bezos of the world with so much money they don't even know what to do with it all, but by and large, they earned it. Yes, some of them did inherit it, but the two examples that I gave, both of them earned every last dime. Jealousy just isn't becoming. Knock it off. Now, there might be some funny business going on, and if there is, that's a matter for the courts. But by and large, every single business owner that I've known, big and small, they've all been some of the hardest working people that I've ever seen. They deserve every damn penny that they make because they've put everything that they have on the line. If you don't agree, then maybe you ought to give it a shot yourself. See just how hard it is and how difficult it is to succeed. That's why the overwhelming majority of businesses fail. This isn't easy, folks. It just isn't. Therefore, whatever they can make legally and ethically, and that is the caveat, they absolutely deserve it. How much, if at all, would it bother you to regularly hear people speak a language other than English in public places in your community? I don't care. Now, it depends on whether they can speak English at all. English is the language that is used in this country. That's just the way it goes. If I went to France, I wouldn't expect them to cater to me if I couldn't speak French. Same thing goes if I went to Germany or any other country. I need to learn the common language of the people. That's the way it goes. If you can speak English and also 4,000 other languages, by all means, go right ahead. More power to you. I think that's great. I think the reason that this ever comes up is because people kind of want to eavesdrop on others in public and see what they're saying in private conversations, but personally, I don't care. Speak Swahili if you want. It doesn't matter. What difference does it make? Try Klingon. I don't give a damn. Just make sure that when it comes to communicating with the public at large or with the government or whatever, you can use the culturally dominant language that everyone else is expected to use. It's really not that hard, but otherwise, I don't care. On a scale of 0 to 100, how do you feel about the political parties? Well, for Democrats, it's 0. It just is. Sorry. This is based on current political realities. I hate the Democrats. As a lot of people know, I haven't voted for a political candidate in years. I vote against the one I hate the most. I can't remember the last time that I actually supported any of them. They're all bad. Some are just worse than others. Yet it might come as a surprise that my answer for Republicans is sitting right around 30, because I don't like the Republicans either. Again, based on the current political reality. Because most Republicans out there aren't conservatives. They're mostly religious fanatics going for political power, just like most Democrats are leftist fanatics going for political power. And I don't respect anybody who's just doing this for political power. I want public servants, not self-serving assholes, and that's really what politics is today. It's always been that to some degree or another, but it's far, far worse now than it ever has been before. You might ask, who do I support if I don't support either one of them? And the answer, sadly, is nobody. I don't think there's anybody out there right now that I can support with a clear conscience. That's political parties. I can't speak to individuals because, that's a very long conversation. But the individuals that aren't part of the major parties, they don't tend to go very far, do they? So, I guess that doesn't really matter. Which of these statements best describes your opinion about the United States? Do we stand alone above everybody else, or are we one of many, or is everyone else better than we are? And my answer is in the middle. I'm not a nationalist of any kind. The US has a lot of good things going for it and a lot of bad things against it, just like every other country out there. Does that mean I want to go someplace else? No, because there are a lot of places that are far worse, and I really can't think of any place that's better. It would just be trading in one set of problems for another, and I don't think there's really any point in that. Honestly, when I look out there, I think the entire planet is going downhill. If I could stop this crazy planet and get off entirely, yeah, I might consider that, but since that's not going to happen, I guess I'm kind of stuck. How much of a problem, if any, would you say each of the following are in the country today? People being too easily offended by things others say? Yeah, that's a massive problem. In fact, it might be one of the bigger problems that we face. Because fuck your feelings. It's that simple. Nobody can offend you but you. I can't give you offense. I can't force it on you. You're the only one who's in control of how you react, and you've personally chosen to react poorly. Fuck you. Now, this happens across the board. The religious get pissed off, the political get pissed off, everybody seems to be wearing their emotions on their sleeves, and I don't think that's doing anyone any good. Everybody needs to grow the hell up and learn how to deal with it. Rent a clue. People are not going to agree with you on everything. Welcome to the real world. Of course, on the opposite side, do I think that people are saying things that are offensive to others? Is that a problem? Yeah, not really. I don't care if you're offended, and I don't care if you're not. If what comes out of my mouth bothers you, don't listen. It's that simple. You are the one in control of your own emotional reactions, not me. Get better at it. The truth is the truth. Reality is reality. I don't care if it makes you happy. Your fifis mean absolutely nothing. Grow the hell up and get the fuck over yourself. Enough said. Which comes closer to your view of candidates for political office, even if neither is exactly right? I usually feel like there is at least one candidate who shares most of my views, or none of them do. And I already brought this up. None of them ever represent me. Ever. Now, I'd like it if they would, but the job of politicians, no matter what office you're talking about, is to con people into voting for them. It isn't to say what needs to be said, it isn't to do what needs to be done, it's to coddle people's fifis so that they get elected the next time the vote comes around, and usually that job starts the instant you get into office, so you get into office the next time. Nobody actually cares about doing a job for the good of the people, and that's stupid. That's what politics is, and I don't want that. I want people to get into office to make the hard decisions, the ones that need to be made, even if it makes people hate them, just because it needs to be done. The job of politicians is to get reelected, and that's not what it ought to be. And that's why I support term limits. Very, very strict term limits. There has to be a balance between having knowledgeable people in office and just having a bunch of crooks trying to feather their own nests. So the answer to this one is very, very clear. Let's move on. Oh, look, here's another one that's just going to piss people off. So let's get it over with. In general, how much do white people benefit from advantages in society that black people do not have? Okay, first off, why in the hell are you capitalizing black and white? That's not how language works. What the hell is wrong with people who just randomly capitalize words in the middle of sentences? Get an education. Anyway, I think we already addressed this, at least in part, back in an earlier question. This is just artificial nonsense. Of course, advantages is a very vague word, and you have to pay attention to how the language is being used, as I find a lot of people are trying to fish for some pretty specific answers based on emotion, not accurate representation of the facts. The fact is, there are no advantages that exist for white people and not for black people or green people or blue people or gay people or straight people or anything like that. That's just not how things work. At least not inherent in the social structure. Everybody gets paid the same. Everybody has the same legal rights and legal responsibilities, and anywhere that isn't the case, because it should be, that's something that ought to be stomped out nice and quick. But within the law, these things aren't real. They're just not. This is a political maneuver by con men in office and political pundits trying to push a political agenda, to make people give them their money and their votes. Don't tell me that you haven't figured this out. Vote for us because we're on your side. No, you're on your own side. Leave us out of this. Whether anybody likes it or not, everybody is responsible for themselves. There comes a point in time where you just can't scream, but the past. Yeah, sorry, that's the past. Let's try dealing with today. If you want to be successful in life, there are a couple of things that you have to do, and they're not really hard things. You have to get an education, go to school, stay in school, learn stuff. It's not that hard. I don't want to hear about your culture because that's stupid. Get an education. Next, get a job. Find honest employment and remain employed and continuously advance within that job. Nobody owes you anything. It's all up to you. Third, make responsible decisions. Don't become a criminal. Most people can do that. You really don't have an excuse. Don't break the law. If you're doing the first two things, this should be a piece of cake. Have realistic expectations and follow through. Don't take on responsibilities that you are not prepared to handle. And this especially goes for children. You have no business at all breeding until you are financially ready to do so in the long term. Keep it in your pants, and that refers to both men and women. Of course, it does go beyond that. Don't run around in $10,000 shoes when you're making minimum wage. Your status doesn't mean anything. What people think of you is irrelevant. Grow up. Because that's what all of these steps are about. They're the path to maturity, and that's the whole point of being alive on this planet. Learning how to deal with the world as it actually is. It's not about black people or white people, it's all people, and there are no double standards. Some political ideologies would like to pretend otherwise, mostly because they're looking for captive votes. But the simple fact is, you have to make yourself successful. If you fail, then you fail. You're the one that did it. Don't go pointing your fingers at anybody else. So, the answer here is not at all. Moving on. And here's another one, because these are so much fun. Do you think greater social acceptance of people who are transgender is... All right, I don't care. I just don't care about social acceptance. That's Fifi's talking, and that's childish. Nobody has to ride you around on their shoulders and throw you a party. Just be who you are. And that goes for being gay or straight, black or white, whatever. So long as you are treated equally under the law and no undue impediments are placed in your way, get over it. People don't have to like you, and I think that's one of the biggest problems that I'm seeing on the left right now. They want to force their pet classes into people's hearts. There is no rational way to do that, though. So long as people aren't getting beat up because they're gay or fired for their job because they're trans or whatever, call it a day. Nobody has to like you. Your feelings don't mean anything. How you react to other people is up to you, so long as you treat them equally like you do everybody else. And I don't care if you hate me. Go right ahead. That doesn't bother me one bit. That's actually something that pisses a lot of people off, because I'll have a whole bunch of people going, "Well, you're a jerk." Okay. You wanted me to break down in tears and cry for that? Yeah, okay, whatever. You don't like it? Don't care. And then they just get pissed off. It's kind of funny to watch. I have a family that loves me. I've got friends. I've got a job that I enjoy. And whatever success that I've earned along the way, that's fine with me. I don't care if the rest of the planet cares about me at all, because ultimately I am irrelevant, and so are you. In 100 years, probably nobody will even know we were alive. So what difference does it make? Whatever. If you're spending all of your time worried that somewhere someone might not adore you, then you're just wasting the only life that you've got. Go make more friends. Stop being an overly emotional toddler. In this case, I really don't think that it's either good or bad for society, because I think it's entirely irrelevant. Legal acceptance? Yes. Social acceptance? Who cares? Overall, would you say people who are convicted of crimes in this country serve too much time, too little time, or just about enough? Well, personally, I'd say too little. Now, there are reasons for this. Chief among them is prison overcrowding. If you get sentenced to 10 years, you should spend 10 years, not one day more, not one day less. Of course, everyone ought to be sentenced appropriately based on the crime committed, not on the color of their skin or their gender or whatever. And some people want to pretend that that doesn't happen, but that is something that we can address on a case-by-case basis. And generally, so long as a jury of your peers found you guilty and you're serving the same sentence as others with the same crime and similar circumstances, you can just rot in that cell for all I'm concerned. If you can't do the time, don't commit the crime. I have very, very little sympathy for criminals. Therefore, my answer is too little time, although I understand the reason for it at times, plus the fact that there's a lot of crybaby liberals out there going, "But it's not fair!" Yeah, fuck you. Which of the following statements comes closest to your view? Religion should be kept separate from government policies. Yes, that's all we need to say. Religion and politics must be kept absolutely separate in all instances, at least as far as humanly possible. I think what's going on in society right now is a complete mess, Every single church out there that is pushing a political agenda from the pulpit needs to have their tax exempt status revoked immediately. If you want to play the political game, pay your goddamn entry fee. Now, we can't stop individuals from weighing their religion against their politics when they vote, nor should we want to do that. But when you've got churches and other tax-exempt organizations actively trying to sway the political structure of the government, no, hell no. That can never be allowed to happen. And now we're on to the very last question. In the future, do you think effectively that the US should be the only military superpower, or that others can do it too? Now, personally, I think we're past the time of superpowers. There's enough bad actors on the planet, including us some of the time, that having anybody in charge seems largely self-destructive. I don't trust our government. I don't trust any government. But the way that things are running right now, I don't want anybody's fingers on the launch button, on any launch button anywhere. Right now, nukes can be used to allow the powerful to get away with murder, sometimes literally. Well, you can't stop me or I'll just blow you off the map. Well, yeah, but that's not justice, that's terrorism. Places like North Korea have been saying that openly for years, but the rest of the nuclear powers are just keeping it on the down low. So we're all guilty, and that really needs to stop. It would be great if we could just take away everybody's nukes, but we can't. We can't trust any government, our own included, to disarm voluntarily, and we really can't trust any group to go around and make sure everybody's done it. Even if we gave everybody one nuke each, it would just be the big countries, the ones who can absorb a couple of hits, ruling over all the small countries who couldn't. So this is a problem I really don't know how we can make go away, but humanity really needs to get over swinging its dick around. Because wouldn't that be nice? So, as I already knew, I'm in the ambivalent right. I'm not particularly ambivalent, but that's what they're going to call it, so we'll just go with it. So let's go into this a little deeper to see what this group supposedly means. How much you want to bet I'm going to disagree with the majority of it? Place your bets now in the comments. As is no surprise at all, not a lot of people agree. It says this appeals to young and politically cross-pressured, which doesn't at all describe me. I'm certainly not young, and I think both extremes are complete assholes. Now, the reason this tends to be is because a lot of people on the right are very religious, and obviously I'm not. So all the things that rely on religion to accept, things like abortion and gay rights and all that kind of stuff, I just completely reject out of hand. I'm fiscally conservative and socially moderate. I don't just sign on the dotted line politically, and that probably confused a lot of people. Well, too bad. Anyway, on issues ranging from the size of the federal government to views about business, gender, and race, ambivalent right hold many views that are largely consistent with core conservative values. Yet they also hold more moderate stances on several social issues and differ from some other segments of the GOP coalition in taking a more internationalist view of foreign policy and a less restrictive position on immigration. Again, I'm plenty restrictive on immigration, just not for the same reason that a lot of people in the GOP are. Because I think we need to do what is best for us, not for everybody else. And that means we don't import terrorists. We don't bring in people who just want to make a buck off the American economy, often illegally, only to send that money out of country. You know, as far as I'm concerned, if you're here, be here. If you're an American, be an American. Don't be a foreign national taking advantage of our country. That's a very general sentiment, but it is a sentiment nonetheless. America first, but not America only. I think that's really the best way to do it. Ambivalent right are a GOP-leaning group as a whole. 68% identify as or lean Republican, and they make up a substantial share of all Republicans and GOP leaners, 18%. But this group also includes a significant number of Democrats. A quarter of ambivalent right either identify with or lean toward the Democratic Party, and a similar share, 25%, voted for Joe Biden in the 2020 presidential election. Now, there are plenty of red dog Democrats out there that are just sick and tired of where the left has been going, but I don't usually agree with a lot of those people either. If there was a legitimate centrist party, I'd probably be part of it, but there isn't. I'm a registered Republican only in the sense that it lets me keep an eye on them. I don't trust them at all anymore. Then it goes into demographics, and I really don't care about any of that, so let's kind of skip forward. Ambivalent right differs from the other GOP-aligned groups with their support for legal abortion and less negative views on the impact of same-sex marriages. They also are distinct from other Republican-oriented groups in their views of Donald Trump. Whereas large majorities of each of the other Republican-oriented groups say they feel warmly towards Trump, ambivalent right are somewhat more likely to say they feel coldly toward the former president, 46%, than warmly, 34%. And most, 63%, would not like to see Trump continue to be a major national political figure for many, many years to come. Yes, I do have few problems with legal abortion and absolutely no negative views for same-sex marriage. More power to you. Here's where I'm going to start to wander, though. I did vote for Trump in 2020. Not because I especially loved him, but he was the best of the two choices available, and you gotta vote for somebody. It wasn't until he got out of office that he turned into a complete religious wingnut, and today I would never, ever, ever vote for him to be the local dog catcher, much less anything else. It's why I have such a hard time voting most of the time. I either have to go for some highly religious asshole, which I don't want to do, or a liberal, which I don't want to do. There really aren't a lot of other options, at least not if you care who actually wins. And since I've got to live under the rule of whoever wins, I'm not going to just throw away my vote on somebody who can't win the election. It's always gritting my teeth and voting for the lesser of the two evils, and I can't remember the last time when both options weren't evil to some degree. And I'm really, really sick of that. Anyway, I'm going to jump forward one more time just because this is probably one of my longest videos that I've ever made on this channel, so we'll just jump, respond, and then wrap it all up. So we're way down at the very bottom where they provide a wrap-up. Ambivalent right are younger and more racially and ethnically diverse than other Republican-oriented groups. They are also somewhat less religiously affiliated. 27% are religiously unaffiliated, compared with 20% of populist right, 18% of committed conservatives, and just 6% of faith and flag conservatives. Well, alright, I'm still not young, and I'm still not diverse, and I'm not remotely religious affiliated. You know, fuck religion. They are similar to the general population on both household income and education. 28% live in lower income households compared to 31% of U.S. adults. 48% live in middle income households versus 47% of all adults. And 19% live in upper income households versus 17%, yada yada. About a third, 35%, have a college degree, roughly the same share as among the adult population overall, 32%. Whatever. I'm college educated and at the upper end of the scale, so as usual, I'm kind of in the minority, so what else is new? Ambivalent right are less likely than other Republican-oriented groups to turn to Fox News for their political news, half reporting getting news from Fox News over the course of the week compared to at least 6 in 10 or more of each of the other Republican-oriented groups. Yeah, but I wouldn't watch Fox News on a bet. Then again, I wouldn't watch any other network news show either. I've got no interest in biased reporting, I just want the facts. I have no interest in watching some dipshit tell me what to think about things. This might be a decent place to just stop for a while. Not that I'm a joiner or anything, but because I just don't care. But if you want to shovel into that particular bucket, yeah, I'm not going to complain. I'm just me. I'm not going to change for anybody. So it's really too bad there aren't more people like that. Anyhow, anybody who's still with me at this point, what did you think? Let me know in the comments. What'd you agree with? What'd you disagree with? If you took this, what did you get? Let me know and let's have a conversation. But let's not do it on quite this scale anymore because this is really tiring.